Total War Warhammer 3's launch is just around the corner, and there are a lot of different options for campaigns in the base game across Cathay, Demons, Ogres, and Kislev. Altogether, you're looking at 12 legendary lords, and with that is quite the decision of which campaign you want to play. In this video series, I'll be giving you a spoiler-free campaign overview to help you decide if it's the right campaign for you. Each campaign will play differently, with an emphasis on a particular playstyle, unit choice, or mechanic. Our next video in this series will highlight Skrag the Slaughterer, the caster character for the Ogre Kingdoms, leading the Disciples of the Maw out of the Grey Mountains in the far southwest of the map. You'll be able to find the rest of these videos as they're made linked in the playlist in the upper right corner and end of this video. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do these videos is by giving you a no spoiler breakdown. I'll boot the game up on turn 1 of the campaign, I'll explain the mechanics of the character in question, show you their skills, quickly show off their research tree, and then give you an overall idea of what the campaign plays like. Keep in mind, this is not a guide, but a quick campaign overview to help you decide which campaign to play when Total War Warhammer 3 launches. Feel free to jump ahead to any part of the video that interests you the most using the chapters denoted in the timeline and the description. Before we get started, if you have not yet pre-ordered Warhammer 3 and intend on buying the game, you can support the channel by using the link to my Nexus Store. Nexus provides Steam keys directly from the developer, and I get a cut of every sale, which helps keep the channel alive. Lastly, if you end up enjoying the content, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. I cannot tell you how much it helps out in battling that YouTube algorithm. Let's get started on Skrag the Slaughterer's campaign summary in Total War Warhammer 3. All right, loading into our campaign for Skrag the Slaughterer. Let's go over some of his faction effects and what he can do as he's just chugging at that cauldron over there. So he has the faction effect Prophet of the Great Maw as leader of the Disciples of the Maw, and this is going to give him a campaign movement range of plus 10%, hero capacity plus 1 for butchers, and a hero recruitment rank plus 2 for butchers. Now for his climates, he gets Frozen, Wasteland, Mountain, Temperate, and then lastly Jungle. Unpleasant is Chaotic Wasteland, Temperate Island, and Savannah, and then uninhabitable is Magical Forest, Ocean, because of course, ogres hate oceans, they are just good flotation devices, and then Desert. So, moving through the campaign mechanics for Skrag, and if you've already seen my video on Greasus, I'm not going to lie to you, there's nothing different. He has the exact same mechanics as Greasus Goldtooth, but he will have different things like different big names and different ways that he interacts with contracts because his different things are going for him. So let's talk about the first thing in meat. So meat is, of course, the unique resource, the unique income that ogres get access to, and is going to be gained through battles, buildings, camp circle of influence, which we'll talk about when we talk about camps, characters, events, and technologies, and then consumed through army upkeep, events, offerings to the Great Maw, and pre-battle feasts. So you can find that up above your character's name, or by selecting on them and finding it down here in the lower left. And when you look at the actual army of this character, you will see their upkeep in gold, and also the upkeep in meat consumption, because once you reach 0 meat consumption, or really in this case 10 meat consumption, your army will start to cannibalize itself and eat their, well, Noblars probably first, but it will suffer attrition and start to take damage. So you want to make sure your meat consumption is at least being matched by your meat gained, or you have enough meat surplus. Now with that meat surplus, you can use this mechanic, the offerings to the Great Maw. Now these 4 mechanics here are going to be the same across all characters in the Ogre Kingdoms, but these 4 abilities here will last for 10 turns, and each one will take or require 10 meat. So the first one, Bloody and Raw, is going to give you 10 melee attack. Your second one, Come and Get It, is going to give you a campaign movement range of 20%. Fill Your Bellies is global recruitment duration minus 2 turns, with a minimum of 1. So this is really nice if you want to, say, recruit any stone horns. It reduces that time to recruit them. Give Me Gut Magic will also give you a Winds of Magic Power Reserve plus 5 per turn. That, of course, Winds of Magic Power Reserve is right here. So currently, we're not increasing that power reserve. This would make that number 50 with parenthetical notation plus 5, just to give you an idea of how that all would work. And every turn it would increase that Winds of Magic. So here are some really great abilities that they might seem like very slim, but when you use Come and Get It, it's going to be particularly good for Skrag the Slaughterer and how he interacts with the contracts mechanic, because it's crucial to allow him to kind of get around the map very quickly. So another big thing is the ogre settlements and how they operate. So clicking on the Gristle Valley here, we're going to go ahead and open up the building browser. Now you'll notice that we've got two other regions in this province, the provincial capital, Carrick-Ziflin, and then Carrick-Asgaraz. And Carrick-Ziflin, once it's taken over by the ogres, will revert to a 4-slot settlement. You only get access to tier 3 in the ogre settlements for the ogres. They rely on their camps for all their advanced stuff, which we'll go into in just a second here. So what you'll be getting from the settlements is any landmark. So here's the Gorger Haunt, which is going to reduce recruitment costs and increase recruitment rank for your Gorger units, which is going to be obviously a big focus here for Skrag. And then also the Tusk Compound, which is a resource building here, which income generated, and then Ivory resource production is increased as well. And it's worth noting that you will only be able to recruit hunters and also Gorgers as a top tier unit from all of your settlements, and then Iron Guts. It's the only top tier things. Stuff like Man-Eaters and Stonehorns are going to be relegated to your top tier stuff from the camps, but you'll still get stuff like defense here, these two buildings, and of course stuff like this, your big rat trap, which, as you might guess, is a big rat trap. You get your infrastructure buildings for growth and casualty replenishment, counting house for income, your stake locker, which is going to increase your meat generated for local armies, but also reduce the income from all buildings by 50%, and your fire mount, which increases control and reduces corruption. So we're going to jump forward here to turn 11 to talk about both the contracts as well as the camps. Before we do that, let's talk very quickly about the big names mechanic for the ogres, because it does apply here to Skrag the Slaughterer. Now, the big names applies to all legendary lords. They will have their own big names. They don't have randomized big names. So here are the ones for Skrag. He gets Maw That Walks, so win a battle against an army led by a spellcaster. Wins of magic power reserve +2 per turn, but meat provided by camps -50% for the lord's army. So once you do that unlock requirement, you click choose name. You'd click that button, and then that name is active and not permanent. It is active and locked in for the next 10 turns. After 10 turns, you can switch to a different name if you want. It doesn't require you to do anything, but you cannot choose a different name in the middle of those 10 turns, and obviously you can only choose the ones you have active. Now you'll find a link in the description that'll bring you to all of the big names that I've personally discovered, and it's a list of 38. So it's a Google Doc with just 38 big names. You'll find the ones that Greasus has, the ones Skrag has. But anytime you recruit a tyrant, and only a tyrant, you'll click Recruit Lord, you will get access to their randomized 4 big names. It could be any 4, but there'll be stuff like go and kill a battle for someone with greenskins, or for dwarves, or with chaos or Cathay, whatever it is, and it'll grant you melee attack bonuses, or win a siege. Just a bunch of different criteria, because as I've said plenty of times, you'll be ranging far and wide as the ogres. But to go through the rest of his big names here, we get Gore Harvester. Use the process meat post-battle captive option to gain 2 meat generated for the Lord's army. Ever Famished. End your turn with over 50 meat. Meat provided by camps +25%, kind of offsetting this one. Meat gained from battles +10% for the Lord's army. Then lastly, World Swallower. Win 5 battles. Diplomatic relations +20 with all factions, which is very crucial. And then campaign movement range +8%. Those are your big names for Skrag the Slaughterer. Let's now check out camps and contracts for Skrag. So moving into turn 11, we can talk about camps here. And with that, we have the ability to deploy a camp anywhere on the map, as long as it is not close to another camp or a settlement. And by doing this, it allows you to have access to all the advanced things. So you can see right now, it costs you 2,000 gold, but I already have a camp active. And you can't even make a camp until you do the very first research for the ogres, which enables you to, well, build camps. So we're going to go over here to my camp, and it's a little bit further along, so I apologize if this is a little spoilery, but I don't think it really will be. But we're going to open up the building browser, and you see this is how these camps work. It works very similar to Horde growth, or stuff like the Black Arcs for the Dark Elves, or the Vampire Coast and their ships. Basically, you are building out this camp to get bigger and better and stronger, and it gives you access to all of your top tier things. So your Stonehorns all the way up here, your access to your Man-Eaters with great weapons or with pistols, You get access to your crushers and your Mournfangs and whatnot through this tree. But then you also get the Iron Blaster, your Fire Bellies. This is the only way you can get access to, again, these top tier things. And you also have quite a bit of things that you get from your defense buildings, which is going to give you army ability Gluttony. Gluttony will enable you, I think if I hover over this one, no, it doesn't. Army ability is Gluttony is an army ability that will heal. So anytime you jump into combat, if you're within the circle of influence, you'll be able to use that army ability to heal units. You get Flesh Bazaar here is going to reduce your upkeep. These bounty stacks is going to give you a massive income generation. Your treasury reward from contracts, which we'll go into just a little bit. Your meat generated. A bunch of different things get unlocked through these infrastructure buildings, which are absolutely crucial. And the camp is permanent. You cannot move this camp. You can destroy it, but you can't move it. So once you've placed it, it's there for as long as you want to keep it there, basically. And the big thing is, this is nice when you start to kind of range out from your contracts, which we're about to get into. But you can see this is the circle of influence that we're gaining. As long as any unit, or I'm sorry, any army is within this circle, they'll gain any of the abilities out from anything that we've generated here. So the ability to recruit lords and heroes we can do from the camp, but also if I want to recruit units, I can be pulling them from the camp itself. The camp also has its own army attached to it here. So if I click this, if I click there it is. You can see I actually have an army that would start to build up in this camp, and I can reduce its upkeep. It's already being reduced pretty significantly, I think by 20% or some stuff. But this is how you actually reinforce and defend these camps outside of those defense buildings. Now, I unfortunately have this camp in my own territory. If I were to say, I don't think I can break this down immediately, can I? We're gonna find out right now together. Yeah, there we go. So if I were to make this over here, just built that camp, the camp will automatically start raiding. So if it's an enemy territory or neutral territory, it'll raid, and it'll get the benefits of doing more and more raids. Now this camp also allows any other faction to recruit ogre mercenaries from it. So if you have if you're playing a co-op campaign and you want to have your buddy have access to some of your units through the mercenary tree, they would do it by just getting within this circle of influence to jump onto it. Or if you're playing your own campaign not against ogres, or not as ogres, this is how you would use that camp and leverage it to get some ogre mercenaries for yourself. Now, moving into contracts, we get this ability right here. And contracts are issued by anyone you have diplomatic sight on. So I know where Reichland is because they're right there. Same thing with Marienburg, Hochland, all these. And these three contracts are all specifically set out to go kill a specific character. So if I click this, oh, wants me to go kill Blout the Feastmaster, or Rof Abel, or Sadiq over here. So you click them and then it shows you where it is. But you'll also get stuff like occupy settlements, raise or sack a settlement. You'll get a bunch of different type of contracts, and they will all issue you money and diplomatic relations. So this is a great way to boost your diplomatic relation. And like I've said plenty of times now, you will be ranging far and wide to do these contracts. Like, take a look at this one. Man, that's all the way up here. That's all the way up in the Vanaheim Mountains. That's in Norska, and I'm all the way down there. So that's where these camps come in. This is a chance for you to create basically a base of operations in that location to do more contracts, or to actually kind of flourish from there. You can just sack and destroy everything around if you so wish, whatever it is, because your camp is what you're actually pulling your income from and all that kind of jazz. And again, with the contracts, you'll be pushing all over the place. That's when you get stuff like Come and Get It. That really makes a lot of sense. You have that campaign movement range to go to those locations. You don't feel like you're slogging through the campaign map so much. Now, contracts themselves will only appear every 10 turns. That's why we had to jump to turn 11 to get this. You don't get them on turn 1. And after 5 turns, the contracts will lock and disappear. You'll have to wait for the remaining 5 to get to that 10th turn. So at turn 21, we'll get new contracts. 31, 41, so on and so forth. But at turns 16, 26, 36, those contracts that we've been offered disappear. So you do have a limited time to accept them, but you're about to get a whole bunch of new ones anyway. So that is the contracts mechanic here for the Ogre Kingdoms. Let's jump into some character skills before talking about the tech tree and then some battle mechanics. So for the character skills, we have the opening trait Gore Harvester for Skrag, casualty replenishment rate plus 8% for Gorger units, upkeep minus 50% for Gorger units as well, because that is his primary focus. It was the same way in tabletop, it is the same way here. Now for his abilities, we get Brain Gobbler and Bull Gorger, which are 2 spells, which we'll go into when we take a look at the actual spells in a second. Then Siege Attacker, Causes Fear, Encourage, Hide in Forest. Wallbreaker and Ogre Charge are 2 ogre-specific mechanics we'll talk about in the battle section, but for the most part, pretty standard fare stuff. He doesn't get an ability like Greasus does, no kind of passive or anything like that. He just kind of has spells. Now for his character stats, he's got 7,200 health because remember he is a kind of hybrid spellcaster type character with 50 melee attack and 40 melee defense and 30 armor with 70 leadership and 48 speed, but a nice amount of anti-infantry here with bonus versus infantry of 20, 300 AP and 130 base weapon damage here with a 50 charge bonus. Now moving on to those skills. We're going to see a lot of the typical kind of stuff when it comes to the blue line, but we get a different one than we had with Greasus, which is nice. It's refreshing. So for one, he gets casualty replenishment plus 6%. Maw Tooth is going to help out with his growth pretty significantly. Devouring Maw will help out with corruption reduction, and then Brutish Enforcers helps out with control increase. Reader of Portents gives research rate plus 10%. Lightning Strike is the new Warhammer 3 Lightning Strike, where you can choose to increase enemy battle reinforcement time by 50%, or use the previous Lightning Strike of Warhammer 1 and 2, where you completely cut off battle reinforcements, but your units do suffer a minor vigor penalty. Then Quartermaster for upkeep reduction, Master of Meat for meat provided by camps plus 150, kind of offsetting that big name we talked about earlier, how it does have a reduction. This is going to significantly offset that. Diviner of Omens helps out with income from buildings by 12%, and Renowned and Feared has its usual bonuses. For your red line, we're going to get the Warhammer 3 Inspiring Presence, increasing unit experience by 75. Bull Charge to help out with those Ogre Bulls. Scrappy Fighters helping out with Noblars. Beast Riders helping out with Mournfang and Crushers. Tools of Destruction applying to Lead Belchers, Noblar, Scrap Launchers, and Iron Blasters. Best Eaters going to Iron Guts and Man-Eaters. And then lastly, Beasts of the Mountains for Saber Tusk Pack, Stonehorns, Gorgers, and giant units. We get Rally here, the the corresponding rank 7 buffs to the aforementioned units. And then lastly, Stand Your Ground. For his spellcasting, we get some fun stuff. So Bull Gorger here is going to increase your base weapon damage, your AP weapon damage by 25% and melee attack by 24%. Very nice as a cast ability. Blood Gruel is the lore attribute for the Lore of the Great Maw, which gives you regeneration, right? It's going to be a nice heal of 0.4% for 9 seconds. It's a great way to get some good healing. And a nice thing too here is your first 2 abilities, first 2, right? Yeah, these 2 first abilities, this doesn't show us here's a standard one. There we go. Brain Gobbler is 4 Winds of Magic and Bull Gorger is 4 Winds of Magic. So you can get these off pretty frequently after you've grabbed Blood Gruel and get some good healing to your army. But Brain Gobbler is again a hex that's going to reduce leadership. You also get Tooth Cracker, which is going to increase armor by 30 and missile resistance by 22. This is a very nice one because it's an augment in an area, and it's going to be crucial against your initial forays into fighting against Skaven, Dwarfs, and the Empire. Bone Crusher is basically like Foot of Gork. It's just going to be a massive 2/3 AP damage, 66% AP damage, 96 damage, 8-meter radius explosion that will just completely smash units. Meat Cleaver here gives you a bonus versus infantry of 8, adding on to your already existing 20, going up to 28. Then you get Troll Guts, which is a great heal here for the ogres. Then the Maw is another explosion doing a lot of AP damage, well, 33% AP damage and 72 overall damage. Earthing, and then Meat Reserves, just your typical Winds of Magic buffs here. Then lastly, Extra Ingredients. So, this is different than your standard Arcane Conduit because its power recharge is not 40%. It is a passive. It is an active, which is also different. And it only can be active or recharges if in melee. So you use it for 31 seconds, you're going to get a power recharge of 160% and reserves per second of 0.2. It has a 90-second cooldown, and that cooldown will only recharge if you're in combat. So it encourages you to keep Skrag fighting, which is pretty fun here. Now for his unique line, he gets Gorger Onslaught, which unlocks at rank 14. Summon a unit of Gorgers, which is very strong. Gorgers are really good units. Driven by Visions, campaign movement range plus 8%, stacking with that for a total of 13%. Stacking with the Great Maw, which brings it, up to 33%. A lot of ways to really increase that campaign movement, because I think CA realizes you're going to be on the move a lot with Skrag. Prophet of the Great Maw, Winds of Magic Power Reserve plus 2 per turn, cooldown minus 15% for all spells. The Maw Feasts offer the Great Maw cost reduction by 20%, allowing you to kind of keep a lot of those benefits active. And then Cavern Dweller, I almost said Cave Dweller, which chance of intercepting an army using the Underway, Beast Paths, or World Routes plus 20%. Very nice because you're dealing with, again, Skaven and Dwarfs and Wood Elves and eventually Beastmen in this campaign. Tolerance to toxins increases hit points by 12%, which is cool, right? That's something outside of this, which would normally be in a yellow line. You're now getting that as a kind of a special little top end here. Toothy Gnoblars for your Winds of Magic Reserve. Walking Larder to increase Winds of Magic Reserve quite a bit. Whirling Stump Blades for melee attack and weapon strength. Lookout Gnoblars for some missile resistance. Lucky Gnoblars for some Lookout Gnoblars was missile resistance. Lucky Gnoblars is physical resistance. And then Blessed by the Great Maw for some spell resistance. Lastly, you've got your quest item, and it is a quest battle. And it's going to give you upkeep minus 5%, corruption minus 5, melee attack plus 3, melee defense plus 3, and passive ability Cauldron of the Great Maw. So this one is pretty spicy. So it applies to Gorgers, so affected unit, Gorger. Effect intensity increases with each kill made by the unit, replenishes hit points of the combatants. So it's an infinite effect range too, so it's the entire map. Heal per second, 0.2%, base weapon damage of 0 up to 20, and armor piercing weapon damage of 0 up to 20%. So it allows your Gorgers to get very strong. And just to kind of show off your starting army, your Gorgers are really cool and good because they're unbreakable. They have stock. They're stock, and they have Vanguard deployments. You can use them to some pretty awesome abilities in the very beginning, and they have Gorger here. This counts as a Gorger for ability targeting, and they get Frenzy, and they have a lot of AP anti-infantry damage, or bonus versus infantry damage. So they're a really, really, really cool, good unit, and like I've said before, they're your top tier unit in the settlements. So these are your character skills for Skrag the Slaughterer. Let's jump now into the tech tree. So the research tree for the ogres is very straightforward. It's just simply one research, followed by a group, followed by one, followed by a group, one, so on and so forth. Repeat ad infinitum. And the way that these work pretty much is these first three are going to give you access to your army abilities, and they're very crucial. And then down the road, they'll do stuff like this, like increasing your camp limit. So these things are very important because the tech tree is going to be really focused on boosting up your camps. You know, camp growth when in enemy territory, camp growth in general, boosting up your camp limit, like I said, and population surplus +1 for newly deployed camps. Same thing right here. So across these three technologies, any new camp immediately has a population surplus of 3, which is very nice. Also, you can do some other things here like your army abilities, like I said, but contracts. So if you want to increase the amount you're getting paid for your contracts, you can go through these, right? These three abilities here are going to increase the treasury reward from contracts by 10%, totaling 30% across all three. So very straightforward, this typical standard fare outside of that with unit buffs and what have you, but just wanted to kind of highlight some of the bigger things in the, almost said dwarf, in the Ogre Kingdom technology tree. For the special combat mechanics for the Ogre Kingdoms, I've had to jump ahead yet again. And this is to show off some of the benefits you get from sieging a settlement with walls. But the first thing I want to go through is the pre-battle feast. So you've got your total amount of meat and you've got this button right here. It looks very similar to the Skaven one for trying to do the Skaven Under the World mechanic, whatever that one's called. And this will give you a bonus here, the pre-battle feast, of speed, unit mass, and charge bonus. So every piece of meat, item of meat you submit, it gives you 2%. This will go all the way up to 5, giving you 10% speed, unit mass, and charge bonus. So let's actually jump into this fight, and let me show you the special army ability the ogres get when they are sieging a walled settlement. Now on the actual battlefield, we got some fun stuff to take a look at here. So here's Skrag and one of his little bros, one of his other butchers, but we've already kind of taken a look at this in the menu, or I'm sorry, the options for the Gorgers, but they have Wall Breaker. This allows a unit to attack and destroy walls in melee. All ogres have this ability. And another thing that the ogres have access to is the Ogre Charge. So when attacking braced charge defenders, this unit only loses half of its charge bonus. Let me exemplify how this mechanic works real quick. So let's just grab a unit of Gnoblars to show this off. And the way that this would typically work is, you see this unit, it's got a it's a box, or a rectangle. And the way that a braced unit works is, if it's not moving, standing still, you'll see a little shield icon appear above the unit icon, and that tells you it's braced. Meaning, if something charges it from the front kind of cone here, the front like 180 degrees, like if you were to, front like 90 degrees in an angle right like that, maybe that's 45 degrees, who knows, not a very smart person, but if they were to charge in that angle, then they would get their charge defense negated by the bracing. Now if they were to get charged from the flank or the rear or this front angle right like this, they would not negate that charge bonus. But what the Ogre Charge is saying is that no matter what, they will always get that 50% of their charge bonus here, right? So this unit only loses half of its charge bonus. So even against a fully braced unit, it will still get half of 48 to actually have this kick off, right? So 24. So that's a nice mechanic for the ogres, and it is what allows them to be very punishing as they charge in, because this increases a unit's melee attack and damage when charging. Now for the army abilities, we get there are 3 main ones. We're going to go through just the first one, and then a special one for sieging. They also get that other one, army ability, Gorger or whatever it is, for the camps that will actually give them healing. And I think, and don't quote me on this, I think that the ogres get access to the most army abilities. So this first one here is Dismember, reducing acceleration, speed, and charge speed of anything, but the requirement here is prisoners. Prisoner points are gained by killing enemy units that are routing or shattered. So this makes the ogres a faction that really wants to hunt down fleeing units, especially if they're like right in the heat of things and they destroy things from a big charge and they've started to rout. You want to pursue them. You want to use those ogres who are very fast already, right at 59 speed for just your standard bulls, or use your Saber Tusk pack to pursue those fleeing so that you can get these army abilities active. Now, if you are attacking a siege or a walled settlement, you get access to Stone Shaker. This one is juicy. So range damage 200, explosive damage 100 with 100% AP explosion value. Now it won't do a ton of damage to units, and that's not the point here, but it destroys buildings and siege vehicles instantly. So if I want to just open up a hole in the wall, I click this ability and I use it, and then 60 seconds later I can do it again to open up another hole. This is, I think, CA's way of trying to balance out the fact that the ogres don't get access to siege ladders outside of their Gnoblars, and it makes it a little bit easier for them to actually get into a settlement. Even though they can attack walls, they're going to be spending a long time hacking at these walls to actually kind of get them down. So this gives you a chance to get in there and get into that cookie jar. But let's now give you just kind of an overview of the campaign and what my thoughts are on it, if it's the right one for you. Now, moving back over here to the campaign map, we can have that discussion, right? We can talk about this campaign and if it is right for you. What are some of the kind of big milestones, or what happens here? Well, Skrag's campaign differs pretty greatly from Grease's Goldtooth, because his campaign is not necessarily focused on empire building. You can do it like an empire if you so wish, but the fact of the matter is you're going to be getting contracts from the old world, from Kislev as you discover these and the Wood Elves, that's going to pull you in directions far flung from these shores that you start on. You're going to be going to Norsca, to the Chaos Wastes, into the Darklands even, and doing some of these contracts. And that makes Skrag a character that you can have a nice little home base here in the southern and northern Grey Mountains, but you'll be really pushing up north into this direction. And if you've seen a lot of other streamers and other content creators playing anything that kind of comes into interaction with Skrag, you'll notice that the AI kind of creates like this crazy Ogre Kingdom's old world empire, which is actually kind of cool. And you can do that as Skrag, which is a very fun possibility. But I think the big theme here for him is that he can range far and wide, and it is kind of, well, that's kind of cool over there. And it is, I think, kind of just part of the character's innate abilities and his far-ranging campaign movement and his ability to jump into these offerings of the Great Maws quite a bit. And I find it to be a little bit more enjoyable than Greasus because you have such a diversity of interaction around here, right? You have got the Demon Prince that starts right here. Yuri's right over there. You get both the Kislevite characters who are right over here. Even Kugoth's not too far away, right? Yeah, somewhere around there. The Pillar Skulls, around there. I can't find it. Can't find it. It's around there somewhere. But just to kind of have more interaction with legendary lords at a closer proximity is, in my opinion, a little bit more fun. And you'll even get interactions with Cathay if you decide to take Altdorf for Marienburg, actually, because they might be going to do a supply caravan directly to you. So you do get an interaction with a lot of different factions, and it's why you get bonuses towards diplomatic relations with all, rather than just simply the Ogre Kingdoms, because again, Greasus is trying to unite the ogres together. Skrag is doing this grand, huge journey across the world. So it's just a different style of campaign. And I think that if you want to play a campaign where you are kind of doing this whole choose your own adventure, go wherever the hell you want as Skrag, then this is definitely going to be the campaign for you. If you do want to build an empire, like I said, you definitely can, but I just think that Greasus is a little bit more geared towards it versus Skrag's far-ranging capabilities. But as always, guys, hopefully this gives you a breakdown of everything. This is now the last campaign overview if you're watching these chronologically. We've done and covered all of the base legendary lords as well as the Ogre Kingdoms, which are technically a pre-order DLC for Total War Warhammer 3. I will be doing these as they come out in future DLCs and other lords are launched, but hopefully you guys have a lot of fun playing Total War Warhammer 3 when it comes out here February 17th. I've been having a lot of fun covering these campaign overviews in a spoiler-free fashion for you. So if you do have any questions, any concerns, anything that I maybe kind of glossed over, go ahead and let me know in the comments section below. More than happy to jump into any more information that I might have missed, but also at the same time, you're about to jump into it yourself in a handful of days. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.